Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Starting with the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. Nice to talk to you again, and I am sure you are with me in my talks about the epidemiology, and you must have realized that the subject of epidemiology carries special attention and deserves utmost interest of yourself, so that you are well versed with the things as far as the project designing, the planning, the health planning, the health program planning, or whatever the research methodology is concerned. So we were talking about the incidence, and we have seen that as far as the incidence is concerned, the incidence rate and the cumulative incidence, two things we see as far as the incidence is concerned, and we saw that the incidence is nothing but it is the frequency with which the disease occurs within a population, and obviously it is an important aspect. Then we saw the cumulative incidence and the incident rate, at what rate it's occurring, and now it's the special, I can say, incident rates. So those include attack rates of any type, the disease attack, heart attack, whatever it is, secondary attack of communicable disease, of course, then is the hospital admission rate, then is what this attack rate or the case rate is. So attack rate is the case rate is the accumulative incidence rate expressed as a percentage used only when the population is exposed to risk for a limited period of time, such as during an epidemic. We want to see that how many attack rate means actually the only total number of the persons suffering from the disease at a specific time in an epidemic, and in the time when the epidemic started or when the epidemic ended or whatever it is a cumulative incidence, how many cases were reported. Then is the calculation that the attack rate is the number of new cases of the disease, and denominator are divided by the total population as at risk for a limited period of observation. When the epidemic started, when it ended, the total time, and maybe 1 year, maybe 6 months, maybe whatever it is, and then is the total population at risk. Example is in outbreak of cholera in a country X in June 2011, the number of new cases were 490, and the population at risk is obviously total population of that living in that area, union council or village or whatever it is, 18,600, and the attack rate will be 2.6%. If we divide 490 by 18,600, the numerator is 490 and denominator is 18,600, and multiplied by 100 to make it percent, then the result is 2.6%. Secondary attack rate obviously measures the frequency of new cases of a disease among the contacts of the known cases. So we know the number of known cases, we know that among 100, 10 people developed a certain disease, and now after some time we want to know that in a matter of 6 months, how many more people from the total population have picked up this disease. And we mean the secondary attack rate by calculating this, we will see that the denominator includes all the population living in that area. So measures the frequency of new cases of the disease among the contacts of known cases useful for diseases that are spread from person to person. The secondary attack rate is often calculated for households. Secondary attack rate is the number of exposed persons developing the disease within the range of incubation period following exposure to the primary case, and it's obviously the denominator are divided by total number of exposed or susceptible contacts, so total number of population living in that area. So we can see that how much population is at risk or susceptible, and how much new cases have been developed. So that is secondary attack rate. The denominator consists of all the persons exposed to the primary case. More specifically, it may be restricted only to the susceptible contacts if the means are available to distinguish between susceptible from the immune persons. So then, if there are certain previous cases, previous exposures, and now they are immune, those can be excluded, or whatever it is, and then the total population. So the primary case is excluded from both the numerator and denominator. So primary cases are not included in numerator and denominator. In denominator, obviously, only those who are exposed to develop the disease from the primary case. So suppose there is a family of 6 consisting of 2 parents who are immune from measles and 4 children who are susceptible to the measles. So there is a primary case, and within an incubation period 2 secondary cases among the remaining children so developed the disease, so that the secondary attack rate will be obviously the exposed ones are 3 and the primary case is 1. So if we exclude 1 from the 4 as susceptible, then it is 3 total population which is susceptible and 2 have developed. So the secondary attack rate will be 2 divided by 3, numerator is 2, denominator is 3, multiplied by 100. So 66.6%, almost 2/3 of the population developed the disease. Maybe it is the measles. So secondary attack rate is useful. Why? To what? This is important. First of all, identify the susceptible and immune patients. We know who is susceptible and who is immune. Second, evaluate effectiveness of the control measures. We want to know that how much effective measures, isolation, the sometimes the preventive, the vaccine, the secondary, the passive immunization vaccine for instant use is useful or not. So such as isolation and immunization, the effectiveness can be calculated through secondary attack rate. Very, very much important. So determine whether a disease of unknown etiology is communicable or not. Now we can know that the communicability to determine whether the disease of unknown etiology is communicable or not, and the communicability. What is the strength of the communicability? How much is communicable? So that is we can calculate with the secondary attack rate. Then is the example of acute rate. I can say the attack rate and the secondary attack rate. So 7 cases of hepatitis A occurred among 7 out of 70 children attending a child care center, and each infected child came from a different family. So total number of persons in 7 infected families was 32. Those 7 children who were affected out of 70, they lived with 32 people. So one incubation period later, 5 family members of those 7 infected children also developed hepatitis A. So calculate acute attack rate in the child care center and secondary attack rate among the family contacts of the disease. So first see that the 7 children developed hepatitis A out of 70. So this is acute attack rate, and then those 7 lived with 32 people, and out of those 32 people, another 5 developed the disease. So let us see how we calculate. So attack rate in children at the center is obviously the X is equal to cases of the hepatitis A among children in the child care center, that is 7, and Y is the number of children enrolled in the child care center, that is 70. So by all means, acute rate is X over Y, that is the number of children who developed disease, that is X, and denominator is the total number of children multiplied by 1000. So that will be obviously by 100. So obviously it is, I beg your pardon, this is 100. So that means 7 over 70 multiplied by 100 is 10%. Then is the secondary attack rate. The X is equal to cases of the hepatitis A among family contacts of the children with hepatitis A, that is 5 who developed from those 7 children. So the Y is the number of persons at risk in the families. Total number was 32, 7 were already affected, and now it is 25 who were susceptible or who were exposed, and out of 25, 5 were picked up. So X is equal to 5, Y is equal to 25, and obviously to develop into the percentage, that will be multiplied by 100. So 5 by 25 will be multiplied by 100 will be 20%. So 20% is the secondary attack rate of such a disease, maybe cholera or whatever it is, or hepatitis A, as we have put forward the example. So hepatitis A, 7 children, when they went back to their families, they infected 20% more of their house members, family members. Now is the prevalence. Prevalence is the number or proportion of the affected persons all present at a spot cases of a disease, both old and new ones, of a population present at a specified time. It does not provide the information about the risk rate of the disease occurrence, just a snapshot of the prevailing situation. Only prevalence tells that 10 people were suffering out of 100 residents of a specific area, or 200 people are suffering from a specific disease in the population of 2000. That does not tell what was the time, what was the risk factor, how many people were living close, what are the family members, what was the time duration, what is the specific sort of incubation period, how much were exposed. Only the specific number or proportion of the affected persons out of the total population. New and old ones are included. That is prevalence. So the numerator is a subset of the denominator. Obviously we know the denominator is a part of the denominator, and that starts from the I can say the percentage, the fraction of a population to the whole population, or maybe less than that population, or whole equal to the whole population. All of the population can be can come in the numerator, and the can be expressed as a percentage that will be from in fraction or less than or maybe 0% to all the persons affected, that is 100%. So prevalence is an estimate of probability that an individual in a population can develop the disease. I repeat, prevalence is an estimate of the probability that an individual in a population can develop the disease. There is no time limit, there is no sort of risk factor, there is nothing, only the estimate that how many people have picked up the disease presently, whether at the spot, snapshot, new ones, old ones, does not matter. 100% can pick up the disease, and that will be P is equal to 100%, or 0% can pick up. So it's a denominator will be 0 out of 100, divided by total population, denominator that is 100. So obviously the result will be 0. So nobody has picked up the disease. That is prevalence. The prevalence of an exposure proportion of this class who gave up drinking fluoridated water, the prevalence of outcome, the proportion of this class who has dental caries. So prevalence of outcome will be exposure, that is 100%, who left drinking or gave up the drinking of fluoridated water, and prevalence of outcome is who actually out of those, say for example, population of 100,000, 1,000 people stopped taking fluoridated water, and out of those, say for example, 500 people had dental caries. So the total population is 100,000, prevalence of exposure is 1,000, and prevalence of outcome is 500. Now the number of new cases, that is A, and the total population is A plus B. So prevalence is of two types. One is the point prevalence at the spot. At the spot, what prevalence is there? So proportion of the individuals in a specified population who have the disease of interest at a given point in time. The number of all current cases, older ones and the new ones, of a specified disease existing at a given point of time, and the total estimated population at the same point. It's not the mid-year, it's not the average between the start and the end of the year, it's the estimated population of the same point, same time, and same on 23rd of March 2020 at 10 a.m. The cases were old and new. All the cases of hepatitis A were this much, and population was this much, and to multiply it to 1000 to make it a prevalence. Example is obviously on June 30th 2010, community A had population of 1600, 29 current cases of hepatitis A were there, and that means the point prevalence is obviously by all means, point prevalence is by all means, I can say 1.8%. How? Because nominator is 29, denominator is 16, and if we multiply it by 100 to make it a percentage, so it will be 1.8%. Then the period prevalence, obviously, then the point comes in mind that we want to see that how many people will pick up the disease during a specified time if they are exposed to the disease. So the number of all current cases of a disease during a given period of time and estimated mid-interval population. So that is where we are. If we want to know that all the current cases in that period and the mid-interval, obviously the population at the start may be lesser and of the studies are of the stipulated time, and at the end of that calculated time it may be more, so the average will be there. So estimated mid-interval population, first starting population, ending population divided by 2 will be mid-interval population, and the number of all current cases of a disease during that given period of time will be period prevalence. During a certain time period, say for example, for a matter of 3 months, May, June, July, 1st of May to the 31st of July 2010, this includes existing cases on May 1 and those newly diagnosed cases until July 31. So between 20th of June and August 30, 2010, community has average population of 1600, existing cases were 29. We have already seen cases of hepatitis B on June 30th, and I can say 6 new cases were picked up of hepatitis B between July 1 and August 30th. So the prevalence, the period prevalence PP will be 29 plus 6 divided by 1600 multiplied by 100 to make it the percentage. So the total number of patients, total number of sufferers, or total number of positives hepatitis B will be 35, and that will be out of 1600. So the period prevalence will be quite clear. Period population will be quite clear that total number of prevalence, because prevalence is the existence of the total cases. So total cases previously existing and the new 6 cases will be numerator and denominator will be population and percentage will be 2.2. So the total cases of the disease hepatitis B at that time. So that will be period prevalence. So question in interview studies of diabetes. Point prevalence: have you had diabetes during last 10 years, 1 year, 9 years? So the relationship between incidence and prevalence is, so prevalence is equal to incidence, the spot, and duration. The duration for which we have studied a case, we have studied a disease, we studied a population, that how much people will suffer from this disease. So having those clear-cut idea of the prevalence with us and the incidence with us, so obviously we all know that the prevalence is equal to incidence into duration. So the prevalence can be viewed as describing a pool of the disease, a pool of the number of people living in a specific area of a pool of a disease in a population, whereas incidence describes the input flow of the new cases into the pool. So clearly we are clear, prevalence means total number of patients suffering, and incidence means the patient developing the disease in that population, and fatality and recovery reflects the outflow from the pool. So those who have recovered or who have died will be deducted from the total population or total number of cases which have developed that disease. So the uses of prevalence, it helps to estimate the magnitude of health problems in the community and identify the high risk population. So uses of prevalence means what help we can avail from the knowledge of the prevalence. So it helps to estimate the magnitude. We can realize the strength of the disease, the magnitude of the health problems in the community, and identify the high-risk population. I will like to put the example of prevalence or the incidence of the COVID-19 in this case, because we never had an idea that before even picking up the first case of COVID-19 was diagnosed in Pakistan, we all knew the magnitude of the health problem in the community, and we identify the high risk population of our country because of our hygienic and living habits. So that is the use of prevalence, and that is why, and other countries, of course, even countries like New Zealand or other countries which had the better preventive measures, they even had lesser number of sufferers. So prevalence rates are useful for planning and administrative purposes as provision of the hospital beds, manpower, needs, rehabilitation facilities. Now you are in a position to understand that when the COVID-19 havoc started, then how the countries managed the ventilators, the beds, the hospital, the 100 patient beds was established in 10 days in Lahore and in other cities. They had specified areas, or they specified certain wards of the hospitals, or certain new hospitals were established, or certain whole hospitals were dedicated for the treatment of the I can say the COVID-19. So by this is all because of the use of the incidence and prevalence. If we know the prevalence and the incidence of the disease, then we are in a position to go for the planning and administrative purposes. Then is obviously the factors influencing prevalence. This is very much important. Obviously the prevalence is increased by longer duration of the disease. If the disease has got a longer duration to be cured, or longer incubation period, or longer infectivity, infective time, then it is obviously the prevalence will be more. And if shorter duration of the disease is of shorter duration and goes away in a shorter time, then obviously prevalence will be lesser. Prolongation of life of patients without care, and if the patients they survive without the treatment and their life is prolonged, then obviously they will keep on infecting. As the best example is of typhoid. As typhoid, the people live without the treatment, they live with it, but they keep on infecting others because of the prolongation of the life of the patient without cure. The patient, they do not become free of the typhoid, but they still keep on infecting and they prolong life. So high case fatality rate from the disease. Obviously we all know that the COVID-19 had a very high case fatality rate, and that is why its prevalence was maybe at that time it was high, but gradually it will decrease with the passage of time. Then in the increase in new cases incidence, obviously if the incidence is increasing, then obviously the prevalence will increase. The new cases are entering the pool, the prevalence will increase. And the decrease in new cases, if the new cases are not coming immediately the prevalence will decrease, and the number of patients in a specified period of time will be lesser. Obviously in the migration of the cases, in migration of the cases of healthy people. So see it again. So if the in migration of the cases, or if out migration of the healthy people is there, then the remaining ones who are suffered, their number will increase and the prevalence will increase. If out migration of the diseased persons is there, then the prevalence, obviously the diseased person will go out, the healthy population number will increase, the prevalence will decrease. In migration of the susceptible people, if susceptible people are coming in, obviously the prevalence will increase, and if improved cure rate of the cases is there, the patients are improving very finely, then obviously the people are all cured, then the prevalence will decrease. So improved diagnostic facilities, they will also be helpful in if diagnostic facilities are increased, then the hidden cases will also I can say the hidden cases will be picked up, and obviously the prevalence will increase. And if the facilities are not there, not many people are tested, then obviously the prevalence will be lesser. So that is all from today as far as the prevalence and incidence is concerned, as far as their epidemiological aspect is concerned. Then in epidemiology, after studying the morbidity, we'll study now next time mortality, and we see how the mortality helps obviously the prevention of the disease. Meanwhile, thank you very much. Stay blessed. Goodbye.